Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to week one, day one lecture. And today, the focus will be to talk about the fundamentals of uh, the database, and we're going to look at the SQL Server Management Studio interface. Right. So I have the objective for this week. So every week, I'm going to be coming up with objectives. We just simply going to focus on those objectives and make sure we achieve them before the end of the week. So for this week, we have this objective. We talked about folder organization. We've talked about downloading and installing SQL Server Management Studio. And this is the next one we're going to move to. Yeah, please, can we all mute ourselves? This will go into the recording. Please, only put on your microphone if you have a question to ask. And feel free to interrupt me. Just put on your microphone and ask a question. Right. I will not be monitoring the screen to see the hands raised. So please just turn on your microphone and ask a question. Right. Okay, so I just want to show you what we've covered so far. And so we're going to move to this part, connecting to SQL Server Management Studio. That's the test we're doing. Right, I'm going to repeat it again. Right. So if so once you have the application running on your machine, how can you check for it? Uh, you can simply do a search on it, SSMS. Those who've done this search and they have it pinned on the taskbar, don't bother. It's pinned already on your taskbar. So this is it. When you find the application, it's right here. SQL Server Management Studio is the application we're going to be using throughout this training. This will give us access to the server. And then once we are connected to the server, we're now going to start performing those different tasks we're going to see today. Right. So this is the interface. Just a moment for it to load. And I'm going to talk about the next steps. Okay. So right here, this is the connect to server. Right. So if you look at on the top left hand side, it says Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. That's what we refer to as SSMS. So SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. Right. So this is the application we're going to use to connect to the server. And then once we have access to the server, we will now start doing the database stuff. Right. Okay. So on connect to server, it says server type. Your server type should always be database engine for this model, right? There are a list of other ones, right? But we're going to stay on database engine, right? So this is very important. It should always be database engine for the server type. Now for the server name, now this is due to the fact that one computer can have different versions of SQL Server installed, right? So the goal of this server name, it empowers you to go and choose the specific instance or version of SQL Server you want to connect to, right? And we go to, so you simply click on the drop down. So sometimes this shows up blank, and that's why the drop down comes in, and you select on browse for more. And of course, like I said, always database engine. So you go to the plus sign in front of database engine, and you can select the specific instance you want to connect to. So in my case, I'm looking at this one. If you have just one installation, you're going to have just one option right here. Right. So I want you to understand that your laptop can support as many instances or versions of SQL Server, right? And they all come in different years. Right. It's 2012, 2015, 14. Every year they kind of do some updates and they publish it. You see that? So for this training, we are using 2022. You can have 2020, 2012, 2015, or whatever version you see. So this gives you the ability to select the specific one you want to connect and you click on OK. That's the name that gets flagged right here. You see that? And let me just step in right here and talk about this. This first part right here talks about that's the server. And the server is simply your computer. So this first part carries the name of your computer. And of course, it's going to be different across everyone's screen. If I connect to each of your screens, this name is going to be different. Right. Now, this name right here is the instance. That's the version of SQL Server you want to connect to. And that's the name you provided during the installation. I told you to put maybe your first or last name, and you put 2022 to it. So this name is provided by you during the installation. You see that? All right. So this is very important. So once you have that set up, the next thing is the authentication. It's just how you identify yourself, right? In a company, they're going to be using a different approach. They're going to be using, for example, SQL Server authentication. You're going to have a company login and a password. So it's going to be secured. You cannot just get into a company and log into their server. You must have the right credentials to do so. So this approach is credential driven. You must have a login and a password. But in our case, we're just going to stick to the Windows authentication. This is a local server. That's your own private server. It's not a company stuff which needs security and stuff like that. So we're keeping it simple. Authentication will be whatever method you use to connect on your laptop. So Windows authentication. This one requires no password. It's basically using your laptop credentials. See that? So this is very important. Let me just go over this again. Server type will always be database engine. The server name, you can click on the drop down and select the appropriate or the specific one you want to connect to. I want to connect to this one. Click on OK. It gets flagged right there. Authentication will always be Windows authentication. No password required. You see. Now you're ready to click on connect. And once you connect, this is the very first window you see, the Object Explorer window. We're going to talk about that. Right. So let me go back to the objective. This is where I am explaining right here, connecting to SQL Server Management Studio. Right. So I'm going to list out this objective so that you can actually look at them and say, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I know I did. You see that? It helps you to, evaluate your progress and your understanding. So are we okay with this? Right. One very important thing. So once you have it connected, you can now just right click and pin it to the taskbar. Pin to taskbar right here. So this application is going to stay there. If I shut it down, you see, it's right here. We're going to be using this throughout, right? So every data analyst, if you look at their laptop, the applications they use frequently, is always pinned to the taskbar. Right, this is SQL Server. Right, this is the go-to-meeting application. This is Tableau. It's a visualization platform. This is Power BI. You see, so these are tools that I use regularly. So I have them pinned on my taskbar for easy access. You see that? So that's the same thing I encourage you. So once you have it open, pin it to your taskbar. Now, if I want to launch it, I just click on it. You see that? Okay, so you always come to this window, the connect to server. Server type should always be database engine. The server name, you can. So once you connect, the system is going to keep track of your connections. If it flags like this, oh, okay, yeah, this is exactly what I want to connect. Yeah, I'm cool with that. If it shows blank, you know what to do. You click on the drop down, go to browse for more, expand on the database engine. Simply click on the plus sign and select the specific instance you want to connect to. Click on OK. And now you're ready to connect. Right. So can we all uh, check this as understood? Are there any questions on connecting to SQL Server Management Studio? So any question on this part? All right. So I expect everyone should have that on their screen. It should be connected to the application. For those who don't yet have the application, we're going to stay back and work on that after the class of today. But I want you to follow through the lecture, right? So any question on connecting to SQL Server Management Studio, and that's the first objective right here, right? Okay, the next objective will be exploring the SQL Server Management Studio environment. So each time you have a new application, it's very important to know your way around the application. It's like moving to a new neighborhood. You want to know the nearest hospital, the nearest school, the nearest mall, the nearest pharmacy, all those basic stuff, right? So when you have a new application, you want to understand the interface. You want to know the environment. You want to know how to get around that application. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now, right? So this window is called the Object Explorer window. On SQL Server Management Studio, everything you create is referred to as an object. If you create a database, it's an object. If you create a table, it's an object, right? And how do you explore the object you've created? That's why they designed this window called the Object Explorer window. Are we okay? All right. We're going to target this window first. That's the first window we're going to look at. And let me just disclose this. If you see a plus sign, when you click on it, it expands. When you click on it, it contracts. So the plus sign shows you that, hey, there are contents to this folder. By clicking on it, it expands and shows you the content. And when you click on the negative sign, it contracts. You see that? All right, that's the first thing you notice on this. All right, so why the Object Explorer window? That's where you explore the objects you've created in SQL Server using this window. All right. All right, so I want you to stay on this window. All right, and we're going to begin with the very first thing right there. This will take me to this aspect, the hierarchical organization of the SSMS window. So server. See, if I go to this window, you see this thing, server and instance. This is it right here. So let me shut this down. That is my server and instance. The server is your laptop. This part right here, that's the server. And the instance is a specific version of SQL Server you want to connect to. This is very important. All right, there are two parts to this. We have the server, which is your laptop, and the instance you want to connect to. This is very important. So that's the top of the hierarchy when you look at it. So now we are actually exploring this. I want you to understand this hierarchical organization, the layout of a SQL Server Management Studio. So first is the server, which is your laptop, and then next to it, the instance you're connected to. And you see this information right here, your server name and the specific instance or version of SQL Server you're connected to. This is very, very important, right? And that is the same information you see on the connect. Right. If I want to see that window again, I click on this button. You see, this is the same information. That's the server and the instance. You see that? So that's the shortcut, the connect, and this is the disconnect. So if you, of course, if you know the connect, you can, if I click on this, it disconnects that server. And if I want to connect back, click on connect. You see, this window always shows up. This is a connect to server window. Right. And I click on connect, it now shows up right here. So I'm actually right here on the first, that's the server and the instance right here. What is the next thing in the hierarchy? It's the database. You see that? The next thing in the hierarchy is the database. So when you log onto a server, you see the server name and the instance. Then next, if you expand that, what's the first thing you see? Databases. So your databases reside on the server in the company. So if I open a company server, I start seeing databases inside. You see that? So I want you to understand this hierarchy. So from the server and the instance, we move to database. So these are folders. They kind of present them here like folders. And the plus sign in the folder shows that there are contents in it. If you expand on it, you see the content. You see that? Right. So the plus sign tells you this if you expand, you see the full content to it. Right. Now, after a database, the next hierarchy is the schema. Right. I wish they had arranged it nicely. So when you expand database, you see the schema. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Right. So the next in hierarchy is the schema. And after the schema, you now start seeing the tables. I will show you. We're going to create the database and you're going to see all this layout. Right. And you start seeing the objects, for example, tables. Right. Right. So this layout is very, very important. Right. So let's go back to this. Um, Let me repeat this again. These are shortcuts. So if I click on this server and I want to disconnect it, you see it's gone. If I click on the connect button, it's going to come back through this. You select the specific server you want to connect, click on connect, it's back. So the server and the instance information is right here. The next in hierarchy is the database. After the database is the schema. Then we go to the tables, right? I will show you that full layout once we have an established database in place, right? So any questions so far? I want you to have this structure in mind. Right? You're going to appreciate it better once we start creating our very first database and we start going through. Right? Next, I will pull up this right here, database fundamentals. I'm going to pull up this document, and everything I explain is also right here. I'm going to repeat it again. So on the server side, like I said, I want you to see your server as your laptop. If this is your laptop as a server, all right, and then this right here, there are these different instances of SQL Server you've successfully installed on your machine. You see, and each of these has a name, right? You see that? So first thing, this is your server, that's your laptop, and then you've successfully installed these instances. So in database platform, we have what we call a default instance and a name instance. During the installation, I told you to switch from the default to a name instance, and you provided a name. So these are what we call name instance. It's easy to identify it. A name instance will always have this arrangement: the server, that's your laptop name, a backward slash, and the instance name. And if I go take you to this, I you have this arrangement. You see, the server, backward slash, and the instance. This is a name instance. You see that it has these two parts. So name instances will always have those two parts. Right. The default instance will have just the server. See, just this part. This is what we call default. It has just one part to it. Right. So this is very important. You can install multiple instances of SQL Server on the same computer. This is the same computer hosting many. There can only be one default, and then each and every next installation is a name instance. So you have to actually name it. So I can have, this is my 2012 stored on this computer. I download and install 2013. I store it on the same computer. Download and install 2015. Store it on the same computer. Download and install 2022. Store it on the same computer. You see? Right. And we're going to use this algorithm to differentiate them. And that's why when you're logging into the server, you have to specify which instance you want to connect. So you're on the same server, same laptop, but then you have to identify the specific instance you want to connect. I don't want to, take a lot of space on your laptop by showing you how to install many versions. You're just going to, take up a lot of storage on your laptop. So one version is good to go. So we are working on the 2022. See, for my own, I have three instances: this, and this. Right. So it's the same diagram you see right here. One laptop or one server with multiple installations. And the good news is that each instance is completely independent of the other. You see that? So this diagram helps to understand the connection between the server and the instance. So the server is just that laptop, a computer, and the instances are the different versions of SQL Server you've installed. And how do you provide the app? The naming convention is done like this. So we have the default one, which just carries the server, and name instances must have this two part. You see this? Right. So this is very, very important. So what you have right here is an example of a named instance. You see the two part. Right. Are we good so far? So please just stop me if you have a question and just put on your microphone and ask the question. So if you look at this layout on that hierarchy, we have the server and the instance. Next is what database. So what is a database? If you go back to the fundamentals, next databases, database stores data. That's a simple definition. And I want you to look at the database as a container. Right. Now, there's a universal symbol that is used to represent databases, and it's what is a cylinder. I will show you an example when we create our very first database. Cylinders are the universal symbol to represent databases. You see, these are cylinders right here. Right. So your database stores data. You can view it as a container of objects. Remember that word objects again. That points toward Object Explorer. I explained that when you create things in SQL Server, they are seen as objects. And if you want to explore the objects, that's when the Object Explorer window comes in. So if I create a database and I want to explore it, I will check in this folder. So yeah, we're going to see that. Right. Now, there are two categories or two types of databases. We have system databases, and then we have the user-defined databases. All right. Now, take note, everything system is what built in. System databases are databases that come with the application. These are those that are provided by Microsoft, right? And if I go into this, I expand on databases folder. Since we're talking about databases, expand on that. You see the first folder is dedicated towards storing system databases. We don't yet have a user database. We have not created anyone. So user databases are those that are created by you, the developer. Right. That's where company information is stored and stuff like that. You see that? So we have not yet created a user database. Right. So we have the system databases. If I expand on system databases, now these are the different system databases. Everyone has this. Right. So if you go to your own version and expand on system databases, you have this. So anything system comes with the application. You have no control over this. Right. I just want you to get used to these terminologies. Anything system comes with the application. Right. It is placed there by Microsoft. So when you download and install SQL Server on your laptop, you have the system databases by default. So it is built in. Right. Now, the ones you don't have yet are what we call the user databases. Those ones are built by you, the developer. So you see, created by the user. This is very important. So they kind of separate system databases from what user databases. Right. So this folder stores just the system database. There's master, model, MSDB, TemDB. And you see that symbol I talked about earlier. Cylinders are the universal symbol for databases. See right here? That symbol. And that's the same thing you see in this diagram. Cylinders. Are we okay? Any questions so far? Okay. So those are the two things I want you to recall. Databases, system ones, and user-defined ones. Okay. And then the next thing, since we're talking about databases, I want to show you how to create your very first database. And I will link you up to this right here. There's an article at the very bottom of this document, right here. I'm going to click on this one. In fact, let me share this. Let me just open and share with everyone. So you know where to find it. It's on the objectives, the week one objective. I will share it in the chat window and just go ahead and click on it. It's right there. So when you click on that, uh, you can skip anything that has codes. We're not going to be talking about codes this week. Right. So skip anything that has codes. We're going to be using the interface. Right. So this is it right here. Right. So how do you create a database? using the interface approach. So let me go back to this document, this objective. Please take note, the focus of this week is graphical user interface. So there's not going to be any coding. It's just going to be right clicking. Right. Let me go back to this. Right. So you going by this document right here, to create a database, simply you have to just right click on the databases folder and select new database. That's the instruction. So you can identify this. You go to your Object Explorer window, right click on the databases folder and select new that and go for new database. Right. So this will be now I'm going to use this opportunity to introduce us to our very first project. And then we're going to go through. Right. So please permit me. Let me go to this project management. This is our first database project. So project management data model is an Excel document. Please go ahead and open that. The model is right here, the model tab. And so you have a project, you want to create your very first database. What's the name? Every database must have a name. See, this is very important. So every database must have a name. We just go ahead and this is the name of the database we want to create, project management. So let's all create a new database called project management. I will demonstrate it first so you can see, and then I'll give you time to go to your own screen. I don't want you us to do it simultaneously. I want you to watch the steps. The most important thing is the steps. So let's watch the steps together. You understand it before you can now perform it at your end. This is very, very important. So from the documentation side, it says right click on the database folder and select new database. Right. And once you do that, get to this window. And when you get to this window, type in the name of the database you want to create. And once you do that, click on OK. Very simple and straightforward steps. Right. So let's do the same. We want to create a database called project management. Please take note. You have to learn how to respect project requirements. There's no space in this. Right. It's one word. And they've used what they call the camel methodology. Camel's methodology is like the back of a camel. Right. It goes up, down, up. See? So two words. The upper the first letters of each word is in uppercase. You see, the rest are in small uh, lower cases. Then the first letter of the next word is in uppercase. That's the Kame methodology arrangement. You see that? So if I have a requirement like this, I just copy the name, see, and I take it to my management studio. What did the instructions say? Right click on databases. Why do we right click on the databases folder? Because we want to create a new database. Right, these are folders. Right, the folders they store specific items. If you want to create a database, then you are right clicking on the databases folder. What do you see? New database. That's the same thing we saw in this document. Right. So I'm sharing this document with you so that you can read through the literature and understand it. Right. Right. So you go to the Object Explorer window first, you right click on databases and you select new database. Simple instruction. This is my Object Explorer window. Right click on the databases folder, new database, and wait for this window to pop up. This window you see right here is the same window you see right here. And once you have this window, what do? You specify the name of the database you want to create and you simply click on OK. Two steps. Put the name and you click on OK. So let's go back to this. Right. What's the name of the database? I copied it earlier. I'm just going to paste. That's it right there. Please, there should be no space and you have to respect the naming of the database right there. You see, every database must have a name. They said nothing about the owner. Let's keep it default. The next step is simply click on OK. So put the name and you click on OK. That's it right there. Put the name and click on OK. Right, we have the name right here. Click on OK. Right, and then back to Management Studio. What do you see? Our very first database has been created. You see that? This is very important. Let me back off a little bit. There's something called a refresh button right here. So it helps you to refresh folders. So if I click on the server, refresh, it's going to refresh it and show you the latest update on that server. Because sometimes when you create something and you look into the content, you don't see it right away. So it's always advisable when you create something, refresh so that it updates itself and show you the latest content of the folder. All right, so let's go to the databases folder and we see this is what they call a user database. System databases are inside here. This is a user database. This is what the user built. It's not from the application. It's not from Microsoft. All right, so this is very important. Let me go back and reinforce this narrative again. There are two types of databases, two types or two categories. We have system databases. These ones, they are installed with the application. All right, if you go to the system databases right here, you're going to see them. You have no control over this. They came with the application. That's why they call them system. Some people call them built-in databases. Now, the next one is what a user database. This is what we created. These ones are created by you, the developer, created by the user. This is very, very important. See, and it shows up right here. I want to stop right here. Are there any questions? And I'm going to I want somebody to volunteer to create the project management database so that we can see the steps. All right. Please, I'll always give you time to do it. Who wants to volunteer?
I can try.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go with. Let's start with Elvis. So Elvis, I'm going to share your screen. So we want to create a database called project management, and we're using the interface approach. Right. Interface approach has nothing to do with coding. You just have to right click on the appropriate spot and you proceed. Right. Okay. So Elvis, go ahead and show us how to create the project management database using the interface approach.
Okay. So can you all see my screen?
Yeah, we can all see your screen. Yeah.
Can you see?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So like here you just right click and you click new, then you come here, you say you type the name. You can copy it from the thing. Project management.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
our
Can you
database
can you
is
can you
system.
convert your M on management? Can you convert it to upper M? Yeah, I want to. Yeah, perfect. So that's the Kame methodology. That's a naming convention. Yeah, excellent. Click on
Yeah,
OK
like click on okay, and here we
and
have
next.
our
That's proof. Excellent.
database.
You see that? Yeah, excellent. So I'm gonna. Yeah, that's excellent. Any question for Elvis? Okay, I'm gonna take the screen. Thanks, Elvis.